After this.
I think we're live. There's always this weird glitch in the matrix where I don't know if we're live or not.
Well, I'm definitely taking the pill to get me out the matrix.
I think we got it. We're good to go. I also think that I try to make that same lame matrix joke every time I do this, twice a month. So if you're tired of hearing the matrix joke, shoot me an email. I will give you a different joke next week. So let me do a couple of things real quick, guys. Okay, I think I'm good now. All right. Hey, welcome to Parents Helping Parents Live. Thanks for being back for another Monday edition. So if you're catching this on a platform that's not directly related to Parents Helping Parents, you might not know who we are. So let me kind of briefly introduce us as an organization, kind of tell you how to stay in touch and tell you what we're all about. And then we will get on to the meat and potatoes of the evening, which is our wonderful speaker. So Parents Helping Parents is an Oklahoma-based nonprofit organization founded by parents specifically to work with other parents who have a child any age 12 to 112 who might be struggling with a substance use disorder. So in a nutshell, it's a group of Oklahoma parents a number of years ago that all had a shared experience of having a young person, a child that was struggling with addiction. They didn't know where to go. They didn't know where to find resources. And they found out that there wasn't an organization, at least locally, geared to helping them. So they founded Parents Helping Parents. And so our mission is to provide shared experiences, provide education, and provide resources to those parents and to those families. And one of the ways we do that is through the live stream that you're watching now, live on Facebook, or watching the recorded version over on YouTube or on our Facebook videos section. So we do lots of other things besides this live stream. One of those is hosting actual in-person support groups across the state of Oklahoma. So I would encourage you to check out our website, www.parentshelpingparents.info, or our Facebook page at Parents Helping Parents Inc. for more information about where those are and when those meet. Basically, they all meet twice a month at different days of the week. Edmond, Norman, Oklahoma City, there's a new Muskogee chapter, Tulsa. So kind of all across the state, there's at least some opportunity for you to get connected. We want people to engage in this live stream because this is a great way for us to reach more people. But what I will tell you is there is nothing more powerful than being in a room with people who care about you and want to help you and want to offer that support. So if being in a live chapter is something that you can do, we really want to encourage you to get plugged in and get connected to one of those. So you can also check out our website or our Facebook page, like for upcoming events and for other things that we've got going on throughout the year. So I want to make it clear that as an organization, Parents Helping Parents has no professional expertise or experience. We are simply here to provide resources, to provide some education, and to share our experiences. Now, we do get the opportunity to bring in people with professional experience, like our speaker tonight, but we just don't want people to confuse our organization as a substitute for professional counseling, medical advice, legal advice. All of those things are absolutely wonderful. If you need those, we want to help connect you. We just don't provide those services directly for you. So as we kind of get rolling, I want everybody to do me a favor. If you're watching live on Facebook, reach up, click the share button, and share our video live to your feed. Here's why I want you to do that. Let's say, I don't want to be offensive. So let's say you've got 300 people on your friends list. By clicking this video, it automatically gives those 300 people immediate access to get the message tonight. And I guarantee you, out of a list of 300, because I know what I know about the field that I work in, somebody on that list has an addict or an alcoholic in their family, has a close friend who's struggling with alcoholism or with addiction, or knows someone who's struggling with addiction. And so sharing this message, like literally could save somebody's life or connect somebody with resources that could be life-changing for them or life-changing for their family. So that's a really free and easy way to help Parents Helping Parents, is just share our content. So reach up, click the share button, help us get the message out. In addition to that, we have got the live Facebook feed going. In the title of this video, there is a text line. So those are the two primary ways you can ask questions. If you've got questions about our organization, if you have got questions for our speaker, Dedrick, send those to me. We want to make sure we get those questions answered. Here's my caveat. I'll be watching the live Facebook feed. If you want to ask your question there, that's great. But remember that that's on the internet for everybody to see, and we can't take it down without removing the entire video. So if you want to use the Facebook thread, wonderful, go ahead. But just remember that people can see that. That's not private. If you're concerned about your privacy or you want to protect you or a family member's anonymity as you ask a question, send it to that live text line. The only person that sees that is me. And then I delete the messages at the end of the night after we're done. So you don't have to worry about that content being out there for everybody. So that's my spiel. That's what I've got. I want to introduce Dedrick Perkins to you tonight. He's actually somebody that I've never really met in person, but we have a mutual friend in the field and in the program of recovery in Oklahoma City. And that friend is somebody that I trust with my life, really. That might be an overstatement. No, I probably would. I probably would. I want to be careful. I don't want to give Dustin too much credit. So Dustin, if you're watching, maybe my life, definitely watching my dog, which is actually really important to me. So that's a compliment, my friend. So right, Dustin hooked me up getting with Dedrick because I was specifically interested in having somebody come on to address some issues related to communities of color. So Dedrick, man, I'm going to pass the ball over to you. The floor is yours. I will be here in the background, kind of checking things out. So really looking forward to what you have to say, brother. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, and welcome to everyone that's watching. It's a pleasure to be here. So, it's a pleasure to be where I'm at, but it's also a pleasure to be online talking to all of you. So my name is Dedrick Perkins. That's the problem with not meeting in person. You don't really get to correct people on your name. But it's Dedrick Perkins. I am a licensed master's of social work, and I'm currently employed as a therapist at Oakwood Springs Behavioral Health Hospital. So Oakwood Springs Behavioral Health Hospital is a hospital under the Springstone umbrella that offers mental health and substance abuse services to anyone over the age of 18. We offer a holistic approach to mental health and substance abuse, such as art therapy, pet therapy, music therapy, along with basic talk therapy, such as CBT and DBT. We also offer outpatient service. So it's inpatient, but we also offer outpatient services. And those outpatient services include a program called partial hospitalization, where you receive the same amount of care that you would receive if you were inpatient, but you get to just go home at the end of the night. And then we also have our intensive outpatient program, which allows persons with a hectic schedule to still get the healing and the connection and the mental health services that they need. That also includes medication management, and seeing a psychiatric professional during the time that you're enrolled in any of those programs. So the phone number to reach Oakwood Springs is 405-438-3000. It is located in Oklahoma City off of Kilpatrick Turnpike. So if you have a family member, you can bring them in for an assessment. The assessors all are licensed mental health professionals, and they would be able to assess with your family member or yourself what level of care would be best for you. If they're unable to provide you services, they're definitely going to be able to point you in the right direction. So that's my spiel for Oakwood Springs. So a little bit about myself. So I am 39, I'll be 40 this year. Looking forward to aging like a fine wine, a fine sober wine. I met Dustin while we were both in students at the University of Oklahoma in the Ann and Henry Zorro School of Social Work. I came to social work kind of on accident, but through trauma. So I'll just get into that really. So I grew up in Lawton, Fort Sill. That's probably about, if you're in Oklahoma City, it's probably about 75 miles southwest of Oklahoma City. And so I grew up there. I had a pretty stable childhood, right? But there were some secrets in the closet. For instance, my father, who would come home, crack open a few beers, maybe have a mixed cocktail, and disappear into the den or the garage that then got converted to a den. Whatever. It's Oklahoma. Y'all know what I'm saying. For hours on end. Um, Pretty much emotionally unavailable. He would also disappear for days on end, and my mom would be left to take care of us. That was, looking back at it, he wasn't emotionally available. He was providing for us. We didn't have a care or a want in the world. We were well taken care of. We were clean. We were fed. But as far as emotional intelligence, we were not getting that level of attention needed for a child to really develop healthily. What in turn was happening, and what myself and my younger brother did not understand at the time, was that our father was an addict. Our father was an alcoholic. He was actively using, and he also was, um, he just wasn't taking care of himself, right? So later in my story, I have this realization that what he was teaching me, without even knowing it, was how to be a functioning alcoholic. Um, and I don't think that if he knew that, I think that maybe he would have made a different decision. But I don't know that for sure. It's the past. I can't do anything about that. But one thing that I do know is that being a person of color in Lawton, Oklahoma, especially a man of color in Lawton, Oklahoma, was pretty heavy for him. Their job opportunities, access to proper medical care, things like that, affected his ability to provide for us in a way that maybe he wanted to be able to. I know that now as an adult, but as a child, you just see a man that is completely emotionally detached from you, a person that's supposed to support and encourage you, that maybe is too deep in his own level of despair to be able to connect with you. So I didn't know much about drugs. Like my mom did a very good job of hiding those things, right? Like we're shielding those things. I don't think that that is specifically a community of color situation. I really do think that that's what parents do, if they have the ability to, if they have the ability to kind of see what's going on. They want to shield their children from the bad stuff and keep them protected. But in turn, what happened is that the secret was left inside of me. Not having a way to discuss it, not having a way to kind of move this energy around. So as I grew up and started to experiment, excuse me, as I grew up and started to experiment with alcohol and drugs, I knew that I liked how it made me feel, right? And I knew that the people that I was around, they really enjoyed how I made them feel. And so I continued doing those things, unchecked. Nobody was checking me. It wasn't a problem. I was being young and free and doing what young people do. I realized that about, about 10, 15 years into it, that this really wasn't the life that I wanted. Just like my father, I was creating, um, I was I was a functioning addict. I was paying my bills, I was keeping a job, I was doing all of these things until I wasn't, right? Um, and so in 2015, I decided I had gotten fired from a job for using, and ended up checking myself into a residential treatment center, Men's First Step, which is out in Oklahoma City, out by Stanley Draper Lake. It changed my life. It opened my eyes to patterns that I had not even known that I was repeating, right? Um, Through that experience, I was able to have a very good, I was able to talk about what I was going through. I was able to learn how to deal with my emotions, manage my emotions. I was even able to open up to my family about what was really going on in my life and what I was struggling with. What I learned from that is in those conversations with my family, I learned a lot about the cousins that were coming from up north, New Jersey and New York area, and relocating to Oklahoma. What I thought as a child was them just wanting a new, like wanting to be in Oklahoma with us, be closer to our part of the family, was actually then a detox, like a form of like treatment, like rather than and I'll get into this a little bit later, but rather than them going to a formal facility, they were coming to stay with our family and start a new life in Oklahoma free of drugs and alcohol. Some that worked for some, but it didn't work for all. Um, so I'm having these conversations with my mother. I'm going to counseling. I'm realizing that I wanted to do something more with my life. So through that, I began the process of returning back to school. So backtrack a little bit. When I graduated, because my parents were so primo, I graduated top of my class in high school and had a full ride to the University of Oklahoma. But I was not mentally or emotionally prepared for that. Intellectually, yes, I made all the grades, looked great on paper, but socially, mentally, emotionally, I was not ready for that experience. So I ended up dropping out, like, well, not even really dropping out. I just stopped going. Like, came home for Christmas break and just didn't go back. Lo and behold, what happens when you do that? When you're on a full ride scholarship, they charge it back to your bursars and you owe them all of that money. So I went like 17 years just avoiding paying that back, really. But they was getting it in your taxes though. Anyway, so I ended up returning back to school. I ended up saving up, repaying that money back so I can enroll in the University of Oklahoma. I knew that I wanted to do something around addiction. I knew that I wanted to do something to help people like me. Right. I just didn't know what it was. So I had a real good meeting with a student advisor and also on the advice of my then counselor, who suggested that I go into social work so that I'd have a more well-rounded education. I applied for the School of Social Work and I got in. That changed my life. It changed so many things about how I view the world. It changed so many things about how I operate in the world. It enriched my recovery as well as enriching the lives of the people around me. As a through my recovery, part of what you have to do is get in touch with a higher power, right? So think about that when you're thinking about your child or your family member that's dealing with addiction. Do they have a spiritual practice? Do they have a spiritual belief? I grew up in a Baptist church, and I didn't really like the doctrine or religious of that, but I knew I liked the feeling that there was something bigger than me. And while one thing that I did learn in my sobriety is that social work is the closest thing to living. Um, Social work is closest thing to living like an authentic life. In any of the major religions, there's always a prophet that is all about love, all about service, all about compassion. And so social work allows me to live within my own values, both professionally and personally. So yeah, I'm a therapist now. I did the thing, got some degrees. I'm like getting asked to come to places like this and talk about things like that, and which is great. But the thing is that addiction isn't about pain. Addiction isn't about wait, I said that wrong. Addiction isn't about greed. Addiction isn't about willpower. Addiction is about not being able to be in your present moment experience, right? And so specifically, when I think of that in community of colors and communities of color, it is difficult to be in that present moment experience. In some cases, it is quite dangerous for you to be driving. It is quite dangerous for you to be in a neighborhood. It is quite dangerous for you to encounter police officers. It's quite dangerous for you to go to work. And so, how do you deal with that stress? How do you deal with not being able to be you and be accepted in a greater society? There and lies the problem. You find ways to cope with those things in the way that my dad was finding ways to cope with those things. Um, I also think about why there are not a lot of persons of colors in support groups, peer support groups, such as like AA, such as Recovery Dharma, such as Celebrate Recovery. Majority of those meetings I attend, I'm generally one of very few persons of color, if not the only one. And I think a lot of that is because how is in the example that I gave about how my family dealt with addiction. It didn't go out the family. It didn't go out the family, right? So think about slavery. We had to be, Black people had to be resourceful. Black people had to come up with ways to take care of each other because they weren't being provided the resources to be able to live a fulfilled and healthy life. So they had to keep that within that family unit, even with the threat of that family member being shipped off to another plantation or to a completely different country or being killed. So you created your own family unit, you created your own community. And so applying that kind of idea to how families deal with problems now, they deal with them within the church, they deal with them within families. My family, I'm sure many of my family members could have found resources where they were at, where they could have gotten the help that they needed, but they were more comfortable coming where they knew they would be trusted, they would be able to trust the people, they would be able to feel heard and listened to, and the people would do their best to take care of them, and that was within their family unit. I think another issue that people in communities of color face is that they don't have clinicians that look like them, right? Like, I'm theoretically in the profession of social work, I'm a unicorn, like literally like a unicorn. So if you ever go to a therapist, if you ever go to a licensed addiction counselor, then what would happen is that if that person doesn't look like you, are you really going to be able to connect with them in a meaningful way? Are you really going to be open to hear what they have to say about what your problem is? And so being sure that when you are looking for spaces and places for your family member to get help, being sure that the people that are serving them, they feel represented in that. And I think that goes across the board, not just being Black or being brown or being indigenous or whatever. I think that goes with gender. I think that goes with sexuality. All studies show that when you feel heard and represented, when you're getting treated for mental health or addiction, you're going to have better outcomes. Um, and so another thing that I think about that communities of color face when trying to treat or respond to addiction is that along with not wanting to deal with formal um, formal services such as treatment centers, such as um, excuse me, um, such as treatment centers, such as organizations such as government entities. there's always the threat that they're going to be punished, right? Most African Americans are criminalized just for being them, just for walking in the room. Even if I got this little nice, button down shirt on, I got my glasses, look pretty professional, but I could go into some spaces and still be criminalized as if I was going to come in there and do something wrong or hurt someone. So you think about that from a societal perspective, and then take that down to the micro of the individual. Then what would happen is that when that person goes to seek services, they may be afraid that they're going to be punished. They're going to be put in jail. Where are the drugs? Where do you get them? Da, 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 da. Rather than seeking that. And so if that happens on something that is completely not related to their addiction, what do you think they're going to do when there really is a threat of legal action? Also looking at the prison pipeline and like the rates of incarceration for men of color and people of color. Like, why would they seek out services for an addiction when they're going to be penalized twice as much, three times as much, exponentially as much as their white counterparts? So, what is there to trust? Also, thinking about situations that I've experienced where on the flip side of that, right? So, I'm a clinician at a hospital, and a lot of times I see a lot of people that are given the alternative for treatment. I see a lot of people that are there for the opioid crisis, right? So I'm seeing that. I'm also seeing them as majority white individuals. I'm not seeing a lot of people of color, but when I do see people of color that are suffering from the same thing, I'm usually seeing them as um, parolees. I'm usually seeing them as persons on probation. I'm usually seeing them as being in the system, the court system, the penal system, which is punishing them for the same behavior. One of the things that really kind of opened my eyes to this is the opioid epidemic. So, knowing what I know about Black history and about politics, when crack came out, right? That was major. It ravished a lot of community colors in urban areas. And what the result of that was is that they needed to be punished. Now we have this three strike rule that was created to defend against drugs. Even though the chemical properties of crack and cocaine, there are only two ingredients that change it, right? However, one would get you um, one would get you a year, whereas another would get you 10 years. And that's just a quick statistic, right? That I could think of at the top of my head. When you look at the data, it was definitely colorized and criminalized. And now we're in the opioid epidemic. And so who does the opioid epidemic affect? Mostly they affect people that have access to insurance, that has access to medical care, and who's the majority of that? That's going to be white people. And so the narrative now stops being about addiction as something that needs to be punished, but addiction is something that needs to be resolved. And so who are those people that have access to that resolution? Not people, generally people that look like me. I'm not saying any of this to make anyone feel guilty. Trust me. But I want you to understand that there are different variables and there's different dynamics that go into why someone's going to try to get treatment and seek help and why someone else is not. I hope that the information I was able to provide for you tonight provided you with a bit more clarity on some of the struggles that people of color really go through when seeking treatment or when dealing with addiction. And I hope that if you have a family member that you really hear what I'm trying to say here. It is not because they're a bad person. It is not because they cannot get their life together. It's simply because the pain is unbearable and you have to find the root of that pain and you have to ask them what happened because it's not what's wrong with them, it's what happened to them.
Dedrick.
Yes.
That was, I did it right that time, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. You're right, man. That's the problem with the cold introductions over text messages. It's very easy
Right?
to mispronounce. Man, I apologize for that. I should have just asked
No,
you
you're
when we
good,
first
bro.
got
You're
on.
good.
Hey, so thank you for the stuff you're sharing. I have some questions, and if people have questions and they start sending those in, we'll get to those. But based on a couple of things you said, I wanted to follow up and ask you a couple of things.
Yeah, of
Towards
course.
the beginning, you made a comment about growing up and watching your father's drug and alcohol use being a way to teach you to be a functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
From your perspective, we hear a lot in recovery about helping raise the bottom for people to help create change and to help people understand they've got an issue. If somebody's got a family member who would fall into that category as like a functioning alcoholic, what are some ways that they can help that person realize that even though they might still be working and might still be doing things that are semi-productive, that their alcohol use or their drug use is still a big issue in their life?
So right, the knowledge of being a licensed clinical, licensed masters of social work and being a therapist, that knowledge, like, yeah, like I paid a lot of money for it, but let me share some with you, right? When you're talking to your family member and they're telling you about the things that are causing them to drink, the question I would ask is, on your deathbed, when you're taking your last breath, is that really what's going to matter to you?
Mm.
Is that going to weigh that heavy on your heart? So why do you feel the need? Why do you feel the need to numb that away?
Mm.
The other thing that I would ask that family member, and maybe they have primo job, maybe they have all of this stuff, like you said, they're not at the bottom. Why is it so difficult to be present in your life? Because
Great question.
right now your behaviors are saying you don't want to be present. You need something to shift out that mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things, and I think also what I was seeing in my dad, obviously he passed away before I was able, and he passed away due to cancer. It wasn't anything like he overdosed or anything like that, but he passed away from cancer, and he got sober for a number of years prior to passing away. But one of the things that I think about is, did he have mental health issues? Was he self-medicating? I think a lot of the things, especially for communities of color, because mental health has such a stigma on it, because we're not seeking services for mental health, we're not talking about mental health. We'd rather say, "Oh, don't mess with cousin Larry," or cousin, or don't talk to Uncle Bob because he's a little slow. He got a little something going on. We'll say those things when what we really need to say is that person is suffering from mental health issues and they need help. And so rather than discussing it up front and frankly like that, we codify these things and say things in this vernacular that prevent us from really getting to the root of the thing, which is that that person is probably using to manage their symptoms. And so while they're still being able to function, if they're managing, if they're dealing with chronic anxiety, chronic depression, they are going to use something to be able to calm those things down.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's a great answer. So my second question was, you talked a lot about some of the barriers that you see in communities of color, specifically with African American families, that kind of prevent them from getting to the services that they need. This is a big question, so don't feel like you've got to answer the whole thing, just a little
Yeah.
bit from your experience. But what are some things that the community, that the recovery community, that the professional community, and the community at large can do to help families overcome those barriers to get more people of color into treatment and access to what they need to get healthy?
Go to them. Go to them. Those community, they're not going to come to you. They're not. They're just not going to be comfortable with doing that. So can you go to the pastor of a church and say, hey, if you have anyone that needs these services, like, they're here for them, right? Because who are you going to trust? Just some random person from a company coming into your neighborhood and saying, hey, if this needs to happen, come on over here. They don't know you. They're going to trust, they're going to trust aunt that says, hey, I talked to Pastor Bob, and Pastor Bob said that this place is legit and they're going to take care of you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So going into those communities, making space for them, making space for them to feel comfortable, and know that it's a safe space for them to come seek services.
Yeah, great. So my last question, and this is a question that I ask everybody that comes on the live stream, is if you had 60 seconds to give like a single thread message to somebody who might be struggling with substance use, or to a family who might have somebody struggling with substance abuse, what would your 60-second message to them be?
It's all in your head. Your perspective. Your perspective has created a reality that just told you that you're not worthy, that you cannot be loved, that you've done horrible things, that something's wrong with you. But that's your brain. Your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is create thoughts, take in the stimuli and try to make sense of it. That's what it's doing. But what I can tell you is that the reality is that you are loved by someone or something. You are loved and you are worthy of that. You may not be able to get sober now. You may not be able to get sober next week, next month, next year. But know that when you surrender your heart, your mind, your body to a substance, it does not care. It doesn't. When you surrender that love, when you surrender to love, when you surrender to positivity, when you surrender yourself to something bigger than you, that's when you find the healing. You don't need to be sober. You need to be healed.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what I would say.
Man, that single line just is super powerful, man, that you don't need to be sober. You need to find healing. Man, that's huge. So we had a question come in. Let me read it real quick and I'll ask it to you.
Oh, thanks for screening them.
Well, I always pre-read them because I don't want to like be the guy. It's like when you know you're about to read a Bible verse in Sunday school, you're like, oh, I better read it first beforehand so I make sure I pronounce everything right. So this is probably a family member who's struggling with this young person, and I really empathize with them. Thank you for being willing to ask your question. So it's just a little bit of, I think, professional advice, but what would you recommend you do with a 16-year-old who's having some substance abuse issues and some mental health issues, but isn't really willing to get help, and there's not much you can do to force them into treatment legally? What might be some ways to maybe create some motivation for them or begin to create some change for them?
Wait, they're 16?
That's what it says, but
Okay.
we also have people from lots of places that aren't Oklahoma asking these questions.
Oh, gotcha.
So where they're from, 16 might be adult. Yeah.
So the thing that I would say is that, so I think with two different brains, right?
Hmm.
So I think with my clinical brain, what I've been taught in school, and I think with my kind of like my own perspective, how I see the world, right?
Yeah.
So clinically, what I would say is set very clear boundaries. If the individual, if you are setting very clear boundaries, such as if you're doing this, you're not allowed to be here. If you are using, you're not allowed to do this. Setting very clear boundaries about what access they have and not
Mm.
enabling them to behave in manners that are hurting themselves, and keeping you safe, in an attempt to keep them safe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
clinically, that's what I would say. So the Dedrick side, the the one that wears t-shirts and basketball shorts and sparkly glasses. So my personal side would say just love them.
Yeah.
At the
Yeah.
core of addiction, there is this feeling that you are not worthy of love. And we have a tendency to throw people away. We do it to elderly, we do it to criminals, we
Mm.
do it to addicts.
Yeah.
Just love them. Just love
Yeah,
them.
man.
You don't have to
Thank
give
you.
them anything. Just love them.
Yeah, man. So, man, we need to talk and have coffee, man.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
got a lot of things I want to hear. So family member said they were in North Carolina, the 16-year-old son. Here's what I would say, just to kind of help maybe connect you with some resources, because obviously I've been to North Carolina, but I have no idea what kind of services are available, what kind of people are available to help you in North Carolina. But if you will go to Parents Helping Parents website, www.parentshelpingparents.info, you can actually, there's a phone number on there for you to contact the partnership for drug-free kids. And they have a number that you can call that can connect you with a free parent coach. So this is a parent who's walked the road of having a young person that's also struggled with substances, who have been through a peer coaching program. And you can do free coaching over the phone with this parent. And maybe that's a way for you to explore some of what you're hearing from Dedrick and some of what you're hearing from other Parents Helping Parents videos, and maybe get some more practical advice for you. If you're not comfortable contacting them, please feel free to shoot Parents Helping Parents a private Facebook message, and we'll try to look for some resources in your area to make sure we can connect you with somebody that can provide you with some help, because we really appreciate you being here. So, Dedrick, man, hey, in all seriousness, we need to get together. We're both in Oklahoma City. You've said it's a partnership to end addiction. Not the, I just got a text message come up across my screen. It's no longer the Partnership for Drug Free Kids. It's now called the Partnership to End Addiction. But the services remain the same. So, hey man, seriously, like let's text and let's try to find the time to get together
Yeah, most
and
definitely.
connect. I'd love to hear more of your story
Cool.
and just be friends. You just seem like somebody
Yeah.
that I need to know, need to be friends with. So,
Hey, I like that.
um, all right. Hey, thanks for being here,
You're
Dedrick. I
welcome.
appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
For those of you that are watching, thanks for being here. It's Monday night. You could be doing 1,000 other things, but you're joining us, and that means something to me. So stick with it, hang in there, and we will see you guys on our next Monday. Appreciate it.